Hello. It's been a while, hasn't it? So I'm going to share these links. And if you're already here, if you're early, let me know, say hello, and also take a look at the description. I have some information in there. So, okay. Hopefully my connection is stable. I just got a notice saying that it wasn't. So say hello and read the description as I am sharing this link. If you're just jumping on, say hello, read the description. I'm sharing the link right now. Hello, we've got two people here. I know I haven't posted in a while on YouTube, so I'm not quite sure how many people are gonna show up, but it's been I have an announcement. I wish I could have told you guys this sooner. A lot of the information, like getting the link ready and all of that, has taken a little bit longer than expected. But if you have read the title, I am speaking at a conference this weekend, and the registration date is February 22nd, which is this Tuesday. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about how I recently have graduated with my master's in organizational psychology degree. And just what's new, what's going to be coming with this channel and what's on my mind. So okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this comment as I'm waiting, because I do want to give people a little bit of time just in case people are coming. But yeah, so Cedric asked a little bit off topic, but is it possible for an INFP to seem like an ENTP? So just to talk about this for a little bit, is that really anybody can seem like any type, depending on when you're seeing them in the context that you're seeing them. What's becoming more and more clear to me is that the actual personality type pattern, you can only really see it if you have seen, if you know the story of the person's life, if you know where they've been, where they're going, where their pitfalls have been, what they've taken for granted, the entire story. Because context matters so much, and we can develop skills in any of these areas of the psyche. And so basically, sorry, I'm a little bit rusty here. Basically, whenever you're seeing a person just exist and whatnot, that's just like one point, I guess, on their overall path. But in order to see a pattern, you have to have multiple data points. So someone might learn to be more like logical and analytical in a certain situation because that has made them feel more safe, or that's been what has been expected of them. And they might pump up some of that personality in that environment. And it could be completely due to a contextual factor. And I think feelers in general have this pressure to maybe seem like a thinker. I've seen that a lot. I would say, to answer your question specifically about an INFP seeming like an ENTP, I would say if an INFP was comfortable in that group of friends and was sharing their opinions and was just in an environment where they felt comfortable to share, I can absolutely see how that could be a mistype that was confusing. So, all right, I'm not quite sure how many people are going to show up. So I'm going to just sort of get started. I don't know if I've ever gone live on a Saturday, so it might not be the best timing. And I know I haven't gone live in a while, but I just wanted to share with you all that so yeah, I sorry, I'm going to be speaking at a type conference, APTI, Association for Psychological Type International. And this is the first time that this organization has had an online conference. So it's happening this coming weekend, February 25th and 26th, and the registration deadline is February 22nd. And there are going to be 4 keynote speakers and 12 concurrent speakers, including me as one of the concurrents. And the 3 themes of the conversation, which I have a link below if you would like to check out more about the organization. The topics are going to be type and brain science, Jungian perspectives, type for a new generation, which is where I'm going to be coming in there. So yeah, those 3. And then you might recognize the featured keynotes. We've got Dario Nardi. A lot of people on YouTube that are familiar with type might know of his work. I have interviewed him on my channel before. He does neuroscience research and has a lot of research about typology in the brain. So, and then we also have John Beebe, which a lot of you might know of as well. He's a Jungian analyst who started the 8-function model. I've done videos about John Beebe's 8-function model. So you'd get to hear him talk. We've also got Linda Berens. I've interviewed Linda Berens on my channel. She has been a typology expert, professional, thought leader for several years now. She worked with David Keirsey, who was really big in temperament theory. She's been MBTI certified and then has also broken away from MBTI and created her own certification system, which I have studied under Linda. And I love her sense of ethics and principles when it comes to type. She also has this, how would she call it? The self-discovery process, her own way of typing people and helping them in kind of more of a collaborative way of helping people find their type rather than just relying on straight up tests. So I really like her methods. Linda is going to be speaking. And then we've got Joel Mark Witt and Antonia Dodge from Personality Hackers that are going to be speaking about YouTube and podcasting and sharing knowledge about personality type in this online climate, in this world. So very excited. Something that you should know if you are interested in coming is that, as I mentioned, the registration we've only got a few days, and I'm very sorry it's taken me a second to let you know, but February 22nd, that Tuesday, is the last day to register. However, you will be able to have access to all of the recordings. So if you can't come or if you can't make all of it, you can get the recordings afterward. I would love to see some of you all there at mine. I am a little bit nervous for it. It's partially why I haven't been making as many videos. I've been really heads down trying to think about what I'm going to do with this. So can talk about that in a bit. Some more housekeeping stuff. So yeah, like I said, that this is their first virtual conference. So in the future, like putting together a virtual conference is a whole other beast compared to a real life conference. There's a lot of technical stuff. Got to get all the Zoom links right. Got to get everything prepared. And so in the future, um, yeah, this is only going to grow in the future. So, what was I going to say? Yes, cost is $150 for APTI members and $235 for non-members, but that will include a 1-year membership to APTI. So I joined APTI, I think about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I think I found out about it. I found out about it in 2019 because I met Dario Nardi in person and was asking, how do I get involved in this world of type professionals? I had no clue what I was doing at that point. I had been on YouTube for a while. I've read a lot of books. At that point, I was working on my master's in organizational psychology because I had known like my interest in personality type hasn't really gone away, and I want to make it more legit. I don't want to just sit around and be an armchair psychologist basically. That's fun. That's fun too. I like just sharing my thoughts. But he told me about APTI. I looked into it. There are so APTI was actually partially founded by, maybe all, I don't know everything about the history of it, but Isabel Myers and basically the people who started Myers-Briggs, forget the other one's name, Catherine. Yeah, Isabel and Catherine. When they started this organization, they had the intention for it to be both for typology practitioners as well as typology enthusiasts. So that's where, whenever I kind of got involved with them, the interest was in how do we get personality enthusiasts to know that this organization exists? Because there are lots of resources. There's a bulletin that goes out. I'm looking at the website right now, so I'm not forgetting everything. There's a bulletin of psychological type. It's a monthly publication. It's distributed around the world. There's Typeface magazine. That's a quarterly magazine that the British Association for Psychological Type puts out with lots of articles about personality typology. They have regular webinars and events that you can go to. I've gone to a few of them. So I'm pretty sure there's like at least some sort of speaker every month. So if you're interested in basically taking your understanding of personality typology to the next level, and you want to kind of break away from some of the stereotypes and kind of relearn it at a foundational level, I'd really recommend the resources that APTI has. So since you do get a 1-year membership if you go to this conference, it might not be that big. It might not be a bad thing for you. I know for me, I discovered personality type in like 2012. It's basically been a decade now that I have been obsessed with this. So, what was I saying? I feel like me starting to get more involved in APTI, studying under Linda Berens last year. I still haven't completely finished her certification, but I've gone through 2 of the courses. I just need to literally get certified in it and do the final assignment. But doing all of that has, I think, made my knowledge in typology feel a bit more grounded and less. It feels a bit like unlearning, because APTI has a set of values, and that kind of all the type practitioners and type enthusiasts kind of stick with. And I don't always see all of these values online. And so I think that when you bring yourself back to core values and principles and mission, it can kind of help you reorient and think through, I guess, the way that we talk about personality type. So, for example, like they have like honoring differences, having integrity. They have those there. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so I'm looking at the comments right now. Cedric says, I wonder if you feel overwhelmed by how you're stepping into a very professional environment. Does it seem surreal? Yes, absolutely. I feel very overwhelmed right now. And I will just say, I feel something that this might be very ENFJ-ish of me, or maybe an FE example, is that really my desire whenever I first found out about this, and I found out about all of the different people who do this sort of work. So kind of segue away from this just to talk about some of the talks that are going to happen. We've got there's going to be a talk on projection and what that is. Something on young and art and typology. Empirical research on Jung's dynamic model. Active imagination in typology. We've got like a good mix here of people who are practitioners, people who have written books, people who do workshops with this stuff. It kind of opened up a whole world for me of understanding some of the things that I could do with this that wasn't just arguing with people on the internet. Because, and so basically, the FE in me really wanted to create a bridge here because it felt very disconnected to me, the way that some of the older generation talked about type and how a lot of people online doesn't know about any of that. And then a lot of the older generation doesn't seem to really know how popular type is online. So the main kind of purpose of this talk was to try and bridge that gap. But what I'm kind of confused with is that there's so much I could say that I'm trying to remind myself too that this isn't going to be the only time that I get to speak at a conference. And there will be, I want to, talk about it as a bridge and to help us connect and to help us share resources and to help us help the information flow, essentially, because anyway, I guess I'll talk about how I even got into this. Is that whenever in 2019, whenever I met Dario, and it was also whenever I did my very first sort of workshop, I did a event whenever I was visiting a friend in LA, and it was like one of the first events I ever really did with type, and it honestly kind of flopped. If you were there, thanks for coming, but that was purely an experiment for me of what could I do to kind of get people together to talk about these things. I met Dario. He told me about APTI, and he said that they're always looking for speakers. And one of the very first things that I thought of was that it could be interesting to talk about just the world of social media and type. And so I just kind of put something together really quick to potentially do at this conference. And I put that together in 2019. I got accepted in early 2020, but then the pandemic happened. And so conference didn't end up happening. The idea I originally had for the conference was way more leaning on my experience. Was going to keep it light. I was going to talk about some of the ways that people are sharing like memes and stuff like that. And I was going to talk about how it's kind of evolved from what I've kind of seen, where I feel like it used to be, I was all over the Personality Cafe forum. There was a lot of Facebook forums. There still are Facebook forums. I don't see them as active as they used to be. There's a lot more typology YouTubers. There's like a lot more typology content creators. The whole idea of content creator influencer is like a thing now when it was not a thing. And that has influenced the community. I feel like it was around 2018, 2019, whenever I started to feel a huge shift in the typology community. And it was happening on internet communities everywhere, where basically it became more and more like personal brand influencer sort of vibe, where I felt like there was a lot of competition that there didn't used to be. Whenever I first started uploading, it was because people were doing like MBTI tags because of like something going around on Personality Cafe. And people were just sharing examples of them talking. And that's really what got me started with all this. But, you know, a lot has changed. Like I mentioned, I graduated in December with a master's in organizational psychology. So I've learned a lot about consulting and workshops and how you run all of those sorts of things, how to do, how to like audit a business and think about things like organizational change, creativity, teamwork, communication. So I have all that sort of like baseline sort of foundational knowledge in that now I'm trying to put together with what I've known about type, but then also some of my own insights. And it is difficult. As Cedric said here, I wonder if you feel overwhelmed stepping into a professional environment. The hard part is that I'm kind of trying to mix my intuitive insights from before I got all of this and trying to link that with the actual like things I've learned that are best practices. And that'll take a second, you know. And Cedric says here, it's like you kind of are stepping off a cliff. You're almost in a gated community. It's like professionals versus dedicated hobbyists. Yes. And what's interesting to me is that the gated community, it feels very gated, but then once someone finds out about it, then you show up and then it's like, oh my goodness, hobbyist, we need you. We need you to tell us what's happening. And so I feel like whenever I started to get more involved, I was welcomed with open arms. And there were lots of opportunities being thrown my way that I didn't expect. And I wanted to do it justice. And probably like all of the past year, I've been pretty torn between if it made more sense for me to try and gain some kind of long-term professional skill versus just shooting the shit on YouTube like I used to do all the time. So, but I feel like it's good. I feel like there's a lot of possibility and a lot of unknown. And I want, I've grown since I started this channel. And I want my content to be more mature and more based firmly in some of the ethical principles that I'm more set on now, as well as Jungian principles that I've learned and integrated more. Because I personally think that all this talk about cognitive functions, 16 types, and all of that, the best way to really understand how to use it as a tool, in my opinion, is to look at Jungian principles such as individuation, synchronicity, like the shadow, collective unconscious, all of these things that we all know, like I've talked about it on this channel. It's probably not new to you. But in my opinion, so Carl Jung was worried about whenever MBTI was first developed, he was worried about the idea of categorizing people because the whole purpose of type and the eight psychological types, cognitive functions, was to help people with the problem of one-sidedness. And part of the problem with putting people into categories is that it can make the ego kind of attach to the one-sidedness. And so it's not even necessarily, in my opinion, that the 16 types are wrong. It's just that the structure of putting yourself into a type might not necessarily help you with the problem of one-sidedness, because the way that our psyches naturally operate, it might be difficult to not cling to this identity that you've set yourself as. So I think the challenge here is that I'm not the first person to have said this, but I think that the way we talk about personality type ought to be more dynamic and ought to be leaving room for that very cyclical change process that happens to all of us. And it shouldn't constrict that flow by boxing us in and making our identity like too firm. And so in society right now, and I'm going to talk about this more in my talk, but in society right now, we're dealing with a lot of division. I've referred to it as wobbly times, in the sense that, there's a lot of uncertainty. People are sticking even firmer with what their ego thinks. We're seeing this politically. We're seeing this against different generations. I think the one-sidedness is strong. There's a lot of identitarianism happening in our culture. And it's only natural that a lot of people, when they're learning personality type, are going to be doing it through this culture and doing it through this need for identity. And I would like to talk about type as not a way to box yourself in, but a way to notice what box you already are in and to remove these barriers so that we can allow ourselves to truly unravel. And I want to say grow, but it's like we're unraveling. We're what did I say earlier? I said this on Twitter a few weeks ago. Something of like we're spiraling out. I'll think about it later. I have been so in like developing my TI, like learning how to write, or like writing more mode, that I'm finding myself, it's been a while since I've rambled on YouTube, and I'm getting very specific about my word choice, which is interesting because I used to not. I used to say the wrong word all the time. But then the more you say the wrong word, the more people yell at you, which this is another point that I'm going to bring up in the talk, and I might make a dedicated video about this at some point, is that I think that there's something about the internet right now that even if we're in a pretty one-sided time, people are very one-sided right now, and we feel this division, and we're also scared because, the pandemic that made that even worse. I think that having access to the internet has kind of thrown us into the void of anything's possible, to where we have a more global mindset. A lot of us that spend a lot of time online, we are having encounters with people who are super different than us. And I believe, I think that starting a YouTube channel as an ENFJ has thrown my inferior TI through the ringer in ways that never would have happened if I didn't have this YouTube channel, or if I was never online at all. Because the reality is, everything that you put into this feedback loop of whatever void internet, you're going to get something back. Or, I mean, I don't know. I could phrase that better. But the thing is that if I'm just blah, 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 using my FE without a care in the world, do you know what I'm going to get back? I'm going to get people saying, you're wrong. I think it's this. The more FE feedback I give back, the more TI I'm going to get back. And that's just how it is. Because the thing is if you're talking out of your dominant function with a lot of confidence, people are going to see the other side and they're going to be like, but, no. You're a little bit too confident there. You're forgetting this. And it's different if you're just on the internet with a private Twitter, private Instagram, you're only on your Facebook and you're only talking to people you know in real life. But ever since the pandemic, social media is a different world. We're interacting with people we don't know. We're interacting about topics where there's lots of different opinions. And I feel like our inferior function is getting triggered like insanely. So going back to this talk in general is that my initial thought before the pandemic, whenever I was going to speak at this conference initially, I was going to just talk about social media. I was going to just let the overall type practitioner world know what's going on our side of the world, in our neck of the woods. I was just going to kind of start that conversation. And I do plan to do that. I really want it to be like an overview, opening the door for conversation, opening the door for hearing their thoughts, sharing your thoughts. So I'm just going to say this right now. If you have any thoughts about typology online and the internet, what you think about the personality type community, if you would even call it that, what has your time been like finding information about personality type online? If you have any feedback on that, please comment, let me know. It'd probably be a little bit easier if you left this as a comment underneath the video rather than a live stream so that I could find it. Actually, I don't know. Comment however you want. But so, what was I saying? Gosh, I could tell my introverted functions have gotten better because I can zone out now. And that's frustrating for a live stream. It's like, wow, I'm actually thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. Makes it a little bit harder. So anyway, yeah, what I was going to say is that the pandemic happened. And for those of you who don't know, I've worked in social media marketing as well. I've worked in digital marketing in general ever since 2015. I have a degree in multimedia journalism, so I'm very familiar with a lot of like changing mediums, changing trends in communication. And so that's another part of the talk. I'm going to talk about that as part of the talk. I'm going to talk about what's going on online in our neck of the woods. But what really stood out to me when I was thinking about this was that the social media landscape in 2022 is so different than 2019, even early 2020, because, TikTok blew up. And I'm not huge on TikTok. I've tried. I don't really think it's for me. But TikTok, all you're doing is interacting with people you don't know, or at least most people. And, I've been on Twitter talking to people that I mostly don't know for a while, but that has trended even more in the direction of talking to people you don't know and following people you don't know. So the whole idea of how to share on social media, how to find an audience or what platform to use, all of that has changed dramatically because the way that people use social media is changing dramatically. And now we're dealing with the problem of people being overwhelmed. I mean, I see people all the time being like, I'm taking a social media break, or I need boundaries, or I can't be on here. And for so long, we were always talking about it as though everyone online had such a short attention span. How are we going to get through to them? Oh, in order to get through to people, you have to be really quick and easy and fast. And I think that people have done that so much. That has been like the marketing advice to give people for so many years, that now so much of the content online is just so boring. Like, in my opinion, like, I'm looking for something deep. I'm looking for something rich. And I'm frustrated if I'm scrolling and all I'm seeing is people talking down to me as though I don't know how to read. And so that's something that I want to bring up in this talk. And you guys let me know your thoughts. But I personally think that with all of the overwhelm with information these days, it's not so much that you have to be quick and fast, but it's that you have to know who you're talking to. You have to be intentional about who you're talking to. Because I think people are being more and more intentional about how they consume information. And you're going to, basically, you shouldn't be afraid to be deep and complex. So, yeah, what was I going to say? I'm also curious your guys' thoughts on this, if you have any. But people are very existential right now. I know that a lot of Jungian analysts talk about this phase of midlife, where basically the midlife crisis, what happens is your ego kind of builds itself up. And then once it's built up, all of the shadows kind of come through and you kind of question everything. And you might feel like your personality is crumbling. I personally feel like something similar to that is happening earlier and to more people. And speaking as a millennial, I feel like this sort of ego crumbling thing is like very prevalent. A lot of my friends, most people I talk to, it feels like a midlife crisis. It feels like a crisis before our ego even got a chance to shine. It feels like we never got our time. It feels like we're expected to be everything before we even got to be who we want to be. I know I've talked to a lot of NF millennials just specifically about how we feel like we have to be an ST at work. And let me know if you've experienced this in your age or if you have any thoughts, because I know it's not just NFs, but that's just specifically some of the friends of mine that I've talked to where it seems like I never got the privilege of just getting to be an ENFJ, getting an ENFJ job, getting to be FE and just get paid for that. Like, I went into an environment with a journalism degree where I had to know everything. I had to know how websites worked. I had to know data analytics. I had to know all this stuff. And where are the jobs of just being able to be an NF unless you somehow work your way up? I don't know. And yeah, so that's one thing I'm thinking about, is that I feel like something is kind of happening where things are really uncertain in society and people are on their path to figuring out who they are. They're also seeing like these blocks to where they feel like they have to be what they're not. And people are trying to deal with these wobbly times with their own sort of internal paradox. I'm going to be doing another talk actually in October, haven't planned it yet, about dealing with your internal paradox. So going to be talking about that more. So yeah. Let's see some of the comments. So Cedric says, I think that people are really hostile toward others who they disagree with. I don't like how mean-spirited people are, and they often don't seek to understand before they attack by mockery and insults. Yes. I was going to say with this that I personally believe that whenever people talk about how people on the internet are so mean and why are people fighting so much on the internet, I think that it happens because people's inferiors get triggered and because they feel um safe saying things that they wouldn't say in real life. So that's one of my main, I guess, insights that I want to talk about um in this call or in this talk. Going back to the comment about me feeling caught in between online world, professional world. Yeah, like what's hard is that I feel like I want to speak to what I know, speak to my experience, speak to I have this YouTube channel. I've done all this. This is what I could tell you about typology online. But also, like like I said, I don't have the certifications yet, but I've studied under Linda Berens. I do have a certification with something called TypePro that so I am a certified type practitioner now, and I have a master's in psychology, and I've been doing this for a decade. So it's like I'm trying to think to myself of like, oh, I am allowed to share my own insights. Inferior TI is a trip because I care so much about intellectual integrity and I care about making sure I'm saying the right thing that I can overdo it and then not say enough until I get sick of it and then I share a lot without thinking. And then I get into issues or I'm overwhelmed explaining myself and then I don't want to talk and then feel like I need to read more. It has been a whole thing. Oh, yeah, I was starting to say this earlier, but then I didn't finish it, is that, yeah, the type community around 2008, 2019, I started to feel like there was this pressure to be like, what's your system? What are your definitions? Who are you aligned with? Like, who are your type gurus that you follow and who do you not like? And I really didn't like that. And I kind of had a hard time making content around then. And because I liked it better whenever it was more of a free for all of people sharing their side. And then we all just sort of throw it in a pot and then agree or disagree, just whatever. And I understand that that can get confusing for some people. But what was kind of interesting to me is to realize that in this world of APTI, this conference, and there's what am I saying? In the world of, I guess, professionals and practitioners, people people refer to multiple systems all the time, and they also mix systems, and they also, you don't have to just stick to one system. You could be influenced by lots of different systems, and then people give credit where credit's due. They'll say, oh, so and so who's a type practitioner used this word that I really liked. Or, oh, I got this idea from this person's book. Or I got this idea from this handout that this person did. And so there's like a freedom there that I wasn't seeing online. And it was interesting to me because at the same time, a lot of older generations and a lot of older ways of doing things does have more red tape and is more gatekeepy. So I thought that was interesting. So what am I saying all of this? So okay. Cedric says, isn't it a little scary that you might be seen as stupid for explaining what you think? It's kind of like taking a chance when you're emotionally invested in your words being received well. Yeah, it is scary. And I've gotten over that fear. It'll always be there. I still am scared, but I've done it so much that I'm used to that feeling, I guess, and it feels worth it to me. But yeah, it was it was hard for me as an ENFJ putting myself out there with my TI, which is kind of what I did. I mean, for those of you who don't know, it's like I was very obsessed with personality type and functions for about 5 years before I even posted a video. I was deathly scared to share anything. I was scared to comment on any forum. And it was the feeling that made me want to share was whenever I started to feel like everything I was reading, it's like you start to get that feeling that, I don't know if this is just like my TI or something. You start to get the feeling that you know more than a lot of the things you're seeing, or that you could piece together things that other people haven't said. And so I think for me, what eventually has motivated me is it's like I listen long enough, I consider long enough, I read long enough, and then it's like, wait a minute, I know what I'm talking about. And so then it's always been a cycle like that for me, to where then it's like, yeah, I could talk about this. I've been thinking about this for years, and I'm seeing people just riff off of it who haven't thought about it much. And so that's always been a back and forth for me. But anyway, I wanted to tell you guys about this conference. I wanted to tell you a little bit about that process of me getting to where I am with this conference, and then also let you know about what I'll be talking about. But as far as the rest of that, so yeah, I know what I was going to say. So whenever the type community started to feel more like, what system are you? Or at least I felt that pressure, because I started to get those comments, and I started to get pressure for me to make my own system. And that felt really wrong to me for some reason. And I tried, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it, because the thing is I didn't want to control like this narrative and stamp my identity on it, when in reality, I think the truth is a combination of a lot of different viewpoints. And I believe that the main thing that really should be defined is just go back to Jung's understanding of the 8 functions. And I'm going to be talking more about this and writing more about this, but basically I'm coming to the conclusion that feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuiting are essences. Shout out to the 10 Ways, who's right here. I'm just putting up a random thing. I think it was you that said something on Twitter about that I was talking about the Platonic ideal. Thank you for saying that, because now it's completely clicked together that basically I believe that we shouldn't be defining the cognitive functions on a very tangible, worldly level, because I don't think that that's the level in which they exist. I don't think it makes sense to say FE is when you do XYZ, or FE is when you're hosting, or when you're whatever. Because I don't think that the functions have anything to do with our behavior, at least not directly. I think it has to do with the way our consciousness operates. It influences our consciousness. It influences our instinct and our intuition. It motivates us. These energies, these essences motivate us to behave in certain ways. And I know I've said this a million times before, but if you really think about the human psyche and all of our potential, and then you just divide that into 8, think about how much potential exists within 1/8 of that. That's why it doesn't really make sense to me for any of the functions to be given a 1-sentence definition. I think it's very limiting. I think our culture really limits it. And so really, I am wanting to get back to, let's talk about the essence of feeling. Let's talk about the essence of thinking. Let's talk about the essence of introversion and the essence of extroversion. It's through that I think that we can allow realizations about what does it mean when feeling as an essence is extrovert or is shown in an extroverted orientation. That's when we really grasp and experience what these functions are. So the 10 ways says, it was you who was talking about the Platonic ideal. I just helped you name it. You've already given your whole talk in 1,000 uploads and YouTube videos. Listen to you. Okay, so this is what INTPs do to me is I'm talking. I have no clue where I got this from because I'm not that book smart. And then it's like, oh, I see that train of thought. It was already said by so-and-so. I just have to say that's so helpful because I was not thinking of it as the Platonic ideal, but it was. And now I have something to go to. And yeah, so when I was saying earlier, when there was like the pressure for people to like find these systems, it led me down a whole rabbit hole of reading a lot of different typology authors and starting to see how they define their system. And the more I went down this rabbit hole of reading and reading, it was because I felt like I didn't have a right to share. It was because I felt like I wasn't smart enough or I didn't know how to hold my own enough. And I was starting to get overwhelmed with the attention, and I didn't really like always feeling like I had to be on the defense explaining what my intentions are online. And so I felt like, you know what? I just need to educate myself more. And to be honest, I think a lot of ENFJs end up doing that, or anyone with inferior TI. It's like, it's very draining to try and hold our own in different arguments or conversations. I really don't like arguing. I just like sharing food for thought. And then people could take that food for thought with what they want. I don't like controlling a narrative. I don't like telling people this is what I think, X, Y, and Z. I don't like talking as though it's a persuasive essay. I don't like persuading people. It's interesting because people think about FEDOMs as being very persuasive. And I think that we are persuasive because we don't try and persuade, and people sense that because people don't want to be convinced. So I think that's why FEDOMs are persuasive. It's like, anyway, I kind of got in my head, and I have been in my head. And now I'm trying to get myself out because the more I was reading and the more I was getting really book smart about things, it made me realize, like, I have a lot of original thoughts here that I want to share. And also there's a lot of this that I don't agree with. Ooh, this is perfect. Catherine says, perhaps ENFJs already know the idea before researching it. 1000%. I love how you said that. That's not always true, but you have to think about the way that an ENFJ processes is it's by crowdsourcing information and experiences from real people. It's from observing how people work, why they make their decisions, what happens in their life. So I'm seeing I get a lot of feedback from people of how certain philosophies have made them feel, the cause and effect of certain things they've done. And I come to lots of realizations, like with NI supporting that. It's like the more FE feedback I get, the more I'm having a realization about what it was that I saw. And then I have these realizations and then I want to share. But then that doesn't include the process of going out and seeking what other people have said. And so I kind of went through a whole thing where I was a little bit afraid of just sharing my realizations because I started to feel like people were asking me the source. And I was like, I don't know the source. It was just something that I thought of. And so I started to feel maybe like I didn't have the right to share. And that is what led me to go read a lot more like books. But then now I feel like I'm kind of coming back out of that again. And also I'd made a thread about this on Twitter once about how I literally feel like something happened where I embraced a part of my inferior TI that I didn't embrace before. And I feel like the cycle started over again. I don't know if that makes sense. I want to make a blog post about this because I think might be better in writing, but I literally don't know how else to explain it other than saying that I feel like I'm an ENFJ again. I feel like I went into the void. I fell into TI. I wasn't afraid of TI. And then all it did was bounce me back all the way. And so I feel like that can happen to people over and over and over and over in their life. And it's like really exciting, actually, when I think about it. Because basically right now, it's like the past 2 years, I've been feeling like I need to define the functions, feeling like I need to know what I'm saying. And I've been putting myself through a lot of, I don't know the term, just like scrutinizing myself, essentially. And then it's like I came to this conclusion. Really, one of the main conclusions that I came to was the idea that life is a mystery and that we shouldn't try as humans to kill and dismember the mystery. We shouldn't try and cut the essence of life into a million pieces to the point where we can't protect what's sacred about the mystery, because no matter how much we know, there's always going to be what we don't know. And wisdom, I think wisdom can sometimes come from holding off and not trying to think you know everything, because if you're trying to, it's often when you're trying to know everything, it's coming from a sense of control. And it's also, that's when your mind tends to create these walls where anything outside of your current understanding can't get through. So I came to that conclusion. And that's what made me embrace even more my feeling even more. And that's what made me realize that my FE has wisdom that TI or TE couldn't have, because it's a feeling function and because it's not looking at things in the same way. And that even if I can't explain in a super logical way, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value, because life itself can't be explained only logically. That's why there is feeling and thinking as the two different judging functions. And I think a lot of times thinkers and our culture could make the mistake of feeling like we have to describe everything logically, when if you look around, there's a lot of irrational things happening all the time, and we aren't going to be able to eradicate emotions. So might as well learn that, trying to filter life only through something that makes sense is incompatible with what life actually is. Because life is not linear. Life is not a logical algorithm. Life is a miracle. And so the truth is a miracle. That's basically what I came to, that allowed me to kind of open myself back up. So I'm going to answer this question. Meghan, how do you define crowdsourcing information? Whenever I said that, I was talking about basically, so I think extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking are ways of processing information externally in a broad way, trying to find a comprehensive conclusion. And to me, when I say crowdsourcing, it's sort of like, before I know what I think, I often want to ask a bunch of people what they think, because even if I have an idea of what I think, I want to make sure that I've considered everything, and I want to make sure that I've heard how this, either reality or truth, whatever, how it impacts different groups of people in different scenarios. So hold on. So basically, what am I up to right now? So I graduated with my master's. That was huge. And then Christmas happened. And then I've been preparing for this conference and I'm nervous about it. And I'm trying to get everything together for that. I would like to figure out a way of how I can now use my degree, maybe doing consulting. There's so many options, guys. Like, I could do type services. I can have that. Or, I could do leadership coaching, or I can do bringing type to startups. I literally have so many options that I'm overwhelmed. I could do online workshops. I don't know, like, I'm trying to, I knew once I graduated that I was going to then think about how can I combine what I've already been doing with this channel with the new skills that I have and the new credentials that I have. So I'm trying to figure out what type of one-on-one offering I want to have. I want to figure out if there's any sort of group thing, if I want to just have workshops whenever I feel like it, or what. I talked to a friend about maybe doing some sort of Jungian book club. An astrologer friend who wanted to potentially bring Jung more to astrology, and I would want to bring Jung more to type people. So there's a lot of ideas that I have, but as I was just saying, with me kind of feeling like I came full circle and became an ENFJ again, right now, like, I've been busting my ass, like, working on this master's degree. Ever since I graduated college, I have been struggling financially, hating my job, doing this just to feel alive. I made YouTube videos literally just to feel alive. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I've been looking for any way out of shitty job situations because the reality is I really don't, I'm just an incredibly sensitive person. And what's been really hard for me is the whole working your way up the ladder thing, because my biggest weaknesses are details. And so it's like often a lot of entry level jobs require you to be like super organized and super proving how you're adding value to an organization. And like, that's not really where my skill lies. And it's been really difficult for me because I've been wanting to do the things that make me feel like me and that I know I'm good at, which has more to do with speaking, anything with people, like inspiration type of stuff. And so that's been really hard, you guys. Like, I mean, I'm the ENFJ stereotype of like just completely forgetting about self-care, like not sleeping enough. My sister, who's an ESFJ, gave me like a skincare routine thing for Christmas. I've literally never even done that. I really so much of my motivation has always come from the fact that I'm very sensitive and I want to love my job, or else I don't really see a point in living, because I don't really care. I don't have a self-preservation bone in my body. And I've always had the mentality of like, I'm going to love life or I'm going to die trying, because I don't know. Like, I've never felt super attached to really anything. I think this could be like an SI blind spot thing, because I feel out of my body. I feel detached from my body a lot. And so whenever I have like a creative instinct or the urge to connect, it's like love and creativity are like these things that move me and make me feel like me and make me feel alive. and then I do that. It's like basically the past few years has been me walking the line of trying to build some sort of foundation for myself while also trying to do the things that make me feel alive. But there's been not much resting. There's been not much play. There's been a lot of myself that I have ignored. But at the same time, that's kind of just how it is if you're going to be doing some sort of push. I mean, working on a master's like was very difficult. Having to do that outside of work and all that. And so I'm excited to integrate more doing nothing into my world, and also hobbies. So I want to be giving myself more time to be creative and to not know where I'm going. And I think also for a long time, I really had a lot of people get into my head, guys, about feeling like I needed to have a personal brand. And I had a lot of people get into my head and make me feel that if I wasn't pushing myself, then that meant that I didn't love myself or that I didn't believe in myself. And it would be well-meaning people being like, well, why don't you offer this and this because you're good enough? Or why don't you do this because, you're so influential, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, based on my reaction of how certain people would push me in that way, I thought that the resistance I felt was a sign of my own, I thought it was a sign of my doubt in myself. And so it would make me feel like, yeah, I do want to get over this because I do know I can do it. So basically, I'm just sick of how structured so much of making content has been. And so anyway, but I do want there to be consistency. And so I am going to start Psyche Design up again, my podcast. There's going to be a season 2. I want to have interviews. I want to ramble about topics. I want to be a bit more prepared and have some, bullet points ready. So I'm going to be starting that podcast up again. I just don't know when. And I'd thought about the idea of making, doing a Patreon thing where you can get the episode early for some people. I've thought about that idea a lot. I just don't really know if that's something that is an incentive to people. But so there's that. And then I want to start a Substack. I want to start writing more and like about type of like kind of going back to basics, but based on how I would explain it. And I'm interested in, I eventually want some sort of like ebook or book, but I realized that I was thinking a little bit too far ahead. That's the thing. There's pressure. There's all this pressure for people to create these end results of like, oh, well, you should make an ebook because that would help your brand and that would help your YouTube channel and you can get people to read it and blah, blah, blah. Like the thing is like, I've just realized that I want to get in a flow where I'm writing every day. I want to get in the flow where I'm making regular podcasts. And I want to pop in and do a video every so often that isn't completely set in stone with like one type of formula. And I'm sick of, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I used to do a lot more of just random one-off observations about type. And I'm sick of it, guys, because it doesn't land. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't land. Because if I was to just have a one tweet observation, then there's questions and then there's whatever, where it's like, I'm starting to really feel like I need to make a blog because the only tweets I enjoy always turn into really long threads. And there's all these caveats and it's really just stressing me out. And so I need to have a blog. If I can do a thread in 2 minutes, I can make a blog. So that's what I'm working on. And then I would like to, I know I talked about this before, have an email list that essentially just captures whatever I post that week, including tweets and like a little paragraph. And so all of that is kind of in the works. But at the same time, I'm trying to not push myself. I'm trying to not be too much in control of how I think this is going to go. My number one priority is opening up my heart and opening up this artist side of me. I've been doing this The Artist Way book by, what's it called? Julia Cameron, I think. Yeah, Julia Cameron. Totally recommend. But anyway, that book, The Artist Way, it is so ENFP to me, or at least it seems very NE and FI. And I feel like it completely drags NFJs in that book, in my opinion. Let me know if you guys have read it. I think it'd be helpful for anyone. I think it's especially that Artist Way stuff. It basically, it gives you like this creative maintenance. It gives you like a sort of routine of what you can do to continually open up your creative instinct and your connection with that instinct and your connection with your identity. And I feel like, especially for an NI person, that so much of my creativity has always felt very directed and intentional and very like trying to get like on the nose with something. And I'm trying to let go of that a bit and open myself up to the mystery and the uncertainty and all of that. So my number one priority is that, and getting myself in tune with that. And I will share with you all along the way how that goes. And also introducing more hobbies. Like I'm taking an improv class. I'm working on like collage art randomly. I want to write more poetry. I want to eventually get back into music, but right now, music, for those of you who don't know, like I very much consider myself a musician, and the fact that I don't make any right now is super sad to me. But I need to open up this flow before I try and force myself to make music again, because I'm too blocked. But anyway, opening up this flow is my number one priority. And then the way I'm thinking about it is, where am I going to put my written insights? Where am I going to put my spoken instincts, whatever? And then I'm going to just try and make it a habit. I've been pretty good at doing like my journaling every morning as a habit, but trying to make that habit, and then trying to just like regularly communicate and not overthink it. So all of that will be coming at some point. I just can't promise when. And I'm also going through a really hard time, hard transition in my personal life. So it's like I'm grieving on top of this. It's been incredibly difficult trying to like grieve while also focusing on this conference and trying to like put my best self forward in front of a bunch of people I admire and like people who have written books that I want to write one day. So yeah, that's basically my long rambly update. I'm going to read some of your guys' comments. Let me know if you have any ideas, anything you'd like to see from my content. If you're still here after, like, I know my content has changed a lot over the past few years. So honestly, I hate to even ask. I hate to fish for compliments because, you know, people always accuse me and ENFJs of that anyway. But I would love to know, like, what do you even get out of my content? And why are you still here? Because I'm trying to think through, like, what I need to emphasize, and without getting confused by what other people are doing, and really leaning on what I offer, because I could tell you I don't want to be just describing the types. And there are people that do that in a great way, and I have done that, but I don't want to, like, I want to introduce type to people, but I don't know. I don't have as much fun describing the beginner stuff. And also I've started to notice, like, I've connected with a few people, like old friends and whatnot, lately, where they're people that I really vibe with, that I really enjoy, that cannot stand personality type, and they cannot stand it for very good reason. And it kind of hit me that's like people who are like my people, who I really vibe with, might not even recognize who I am if I'm trying too hard to look a certain way. It's like, because I don't want, like, there are certain things about personality type and the categories that I don't vibe with. And it's like, I want to be having the conversation that I want to have. And that's difficult to know what that looks like. Love this. Meghan wants to do all the things, but can't do them all at once. Yes. And it's very stressful having all of the ideas kind of culminate all at once in my head, and then feeling like it takes forever to get there. But I think that might be partially what being an NJ can feel like, is that you have a strong vision and it all kind of culminates and you see it all before it happens. And then it's like, yeah, it's going to take a while. So, yeah. Thank you for this, for seeing my rawness and honesty. I really appreciate that. I want to share some of that. I have been afraid to for a while. Yeah, so about socionics and quadras and the difference between that and MBTI, I am interested in that. But again, for me personally, I'm just realizing that I'm not really interested in describing systems and defining systems. I don't know if it's because I don't value TE at all, but for me, I just don't get as much value from that, because what I really want to be talking about more is social problems that are happening, and then pointing out, like, oh, that's an example of one-sidedness with extroversion, or oh, that's an example of one-sidedness with intuition, or oh, that's an example of where this environment is way too FE and there's not enough FI. It's like, I want to be talking about, like, the actual problems that we face, but I think that the hard part is, like I said, if I don't really like explaining what type is, how do I even talk about these things without explaining what type is? Because there's, like, such a small amount of people that would know what I'm talking about. It's like, those are the people I want to talk to, the people who know what I'm talking about. Like, for example, if I were going to say that I think that Western therapy is way too FI and not FE enough, or if I want to say that, I don't freaking know. One thing I want to talk about is that I think that we're dealing with a lot of intuition and sensing, like, wobbliness in our culture right now, because we have a bunch of fear of conspiracy theories, which is almost like a negative way that intuition could be. But then on the other hand, we have a lot of, like, spirituality and religion kind of dying, which is like intuition not being valued. But then there's, like, the whole thing of believe science being, like, very sensing. People refusing to believe science is, like, really people just denying sensing. And so all of those sorts of problems, these are the things that keep me up at night, to where I'm like, if only people realized that all we need to do is balance intuition and sensing, we wouldn't be getting in these same arguments all the time. That's where I'm trying to get at. I don't really know how to frame that conversation. The only way I've really known how is kind of what I'm doing now, by just rambling at a computer and seeing what happens. So Cedric said, I would love to hear you talk about art and beauty. Yes, I've been actually thinking a lot about art and also a lot about love. When I say that, I mean, like, what is it? Like, trying to define it. And I think that that's kind of where I'm headed is I want to talk about art and love and creativity, and I want to talk about the functions of that. So it's like bringing it back to what I think is the most important thing about being a human, and then using type to that. So this science has a major flaw: assumptions, things we simply assume. You can't say everything about science is flawless. I agree. That's the thing, is that people are not seeing it. They're seeing it in a wobbly way. They're either completely doubling down, saying it's just sensing, or they're completely doubling down on sensing and being like, this is it, and anything else is wrong. Religion is wrong. All of that's wrong. But then when you do that, you're accidentally applying sensing to intuitive questions. It's like I saw something the other day that was like, scientists will tell you why you cry when you're going through a heartbreak, or when you're going through like heartbreak. And maybe that's more thinking and feeling, but it's like, is science going to help you heal your heartbreak? Is this fact going to do it? Or is there something else? So the way I've been thinking about it lately is that feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuiting, they're each their own domains, and the functions are the ruler of those domains. And if you, as a function, are trying to rule some other domain, you're going to be wrong. So with science, for example, there's a huge problem with intuition and sensing not getting along. There are people using intuition to make assumptions about science that you can't make. Or there are people, anyway, I think you see what I mean, is that the reality, I guess what stresses me out is watching people have the same arguments over and over again, and they're not really clicking at all to the other person, and all it's doing is making the one side in is stronger. Because, like, for example, with the science and conspiracy thing, if you were going to say, don't believe any conspiracy at all, that's not good, because we need to be thinking outside the box. We need to be reading into things a little bit. But you also can't go completely too far to where people are completely ignoring reality. So that's a problem. So anyway, yeah, I don't think current society is good for integration. That's why so many people are struggling. Yeah, I think that a lot of people are really lost right now. And yeah, putting personality typing into practice is in breaking down real life situations. I completely agree. I've wanted to do like some sort of advice thing, Q&A, for a long time, but I've never really known what to do with that. Because every time I've tried to do like regular Q&A things, I don't get as many bites as I want. So maybe I need to do like a monthly free YouTube video with Q&A. I don't know. I don't know where to put Q&A stuff, but what I absolutely love is when I know someone's type and they're going through something, they have a problem, and then I help them see what functions they're not seeing. Like, I love doing that, and I just don't know how to do that. I don't have a framework for it yet. But anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to bridge, the professional experience with my other experience. I'm trying to have my own ideas on top of what I've learned. I'm trying to open myself up artistically. I'm trying to stop over planning, because that's a whole other thing I could talk about, is the way I've noticed a lot about how my NI has like prevented a lot of creativity and has like kind of put a hammer down on certain things of like, this is my vision, this is what I'm going for, to where I've been too close-minded and too controlling of the flow of creativity. So this is a good idea. The way you talk, it seems like one of your strengths would be showing how to integrate different functions. Perhaps it's a strength of extroverted feeling. Yes. Yes, I feel like FE naturally is pretty good at recognizing that everybody has their value and their place. Something I was thinking about a while ago actually is that I feel like FJs, since our TI is unconscious, we unconsciously pick up the right tool whenever we need it, but we don't know much about what the tool is or everything about like what we're doing. The FE is like what's needed. Oh, you need this? I gotcha. And we know what to do. We don't know why we're doing it. And so if someone asks us what our logic was, it's like, and so something I realized though with that is that we know more than we think we do. A lot of FJs, I think, will do things like, oh, well, that's needed. And so I have this. And so let me do this. And we know what works. We know what people need and we know the tools. We know how to use the tools. But then if someone asks you, tell me everything about that tool and tell me why you did it and tell me when to not use the tool or blah, 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 then we can kind of like freeze up and then it makes us look like, it makes FJs look like we don't know a thing of what we're talking about and that we have no business doing what it is that we do. And the reality is we know the FE, we know what we're doing and it does work. We just don't know the why and we haven't thought it through, because if it works, why would you think it through? And that is what inferior TI is like, is why think it through? Because if I already know, then what else do I need to know? A big thing for me, this is a good example of this, is I was talking with my ex-partner about basically how I tend to go into relationships just feeling the vibe and being like, sure, I'll just go forward this way. And I don't think about, are we compatible? Do we work? Blah, blah, blah. I don't think about that. Because the thing is that if I feel good and they feel good and it works, what else do I need to think about? That's always been my view. And I see how that has maybe shot me in the foot sometimes, where I have just gone along with things. But you can't regret it either. But also it's like, why would I have needed to think about it if I got what I wanted out of it, if I learned from it? There's nothing wrong with letting love move. So anyway, the point with that is like, I do things without thinking about it. Yes, I do. Because sometimes you don't need to know. Sometimes the connection's enough. Enough. If it's helping, it's helping. So that's kind of where it's like, I think FE has a lot of wisdom that then someone asks you where you got that. And then we doubt ourselves and then we can stop thinking that we have that wisdom. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I was just going to say that kind of Q&A could work appended to the podcast. That is a great idea. Maybe I'll do something to where I'll have people give me personal stories or whatever, have them send to me, and then I'll pick one to do at the beginning or the end of every podcast or something like that. So Cedric, your description of letting love move sounds scary as hell. I could never do that. I think this is a big thing that FE does, is that just wants it all to move. I instinctively let it move. I don't really know how to explain it, but especially you said you were typed as an INFP, makes sense to me. So I'm going to answer a couple questions and then I'm going to end this because I've been talking way longer than I wanted to. So for this, what typology system do you use to type people, Megan? I talked about this about 30 minutes ago, probably, about how this question stresses me out, but I'll tell you what I realized is that I want to bring it back to Jungian's or Carl Jung's, like the 4 essences. I want to talk about feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuiting as an essence, and understand intuition and extroversion as an essence, in the sense that these are higher ideals that you need to experience in order to understand. And you can't just read a definition and know. And so because that's the level in which they operate, it's very difficult to be able to go on a granular, tangible level and know, oh, because you did that behavior, that means you're using that function, because that's not how it works. You have to see the pattern in order to know the pattern of the one-sidedness in the psyche. And so there's that, but then I have other definitions, or I have like type definitions that I could use, but Linda Berens' self-discovery process is my favorite process for typing people, which is essentially opening the door for them to discover themselves and reflecting what I see back and coming up with the best type description together. So, and then for this question, I don't really understand this personality test. I'm an INTJ. I don't know what benefit I get from knowing this. Yes, I have some traits. So what? I will tell you that I can't answer this question right now because I've been talking for so long, but I do want to be able to understand this, or I do want to be able to explain this, because I do think that it's not clear what the benefit is to people. A lot of the benefit that people get is an ego boost, and I don't think that that's good enough. And there is more benefit, but we need to talk about it in a different way in order for people to get that benefit. And so I'm in the process of trying to reframe a conversation, essentially, which I think might be FE. Might be kind of FE of me to like think about the climate of the conversation and reframe it. I think that that probably is my FE that did that. Love this question. The typology system to give me amazing volume in my hair. I love all the hair comments. I appreciate it. You know, just doing my thing, just ENFJ thing. So anyway, I've been talking way longer. If you have any ideas, let me know. Kind of just needed to jump in here and say whatever was on my mind, because it's been a while since I did a video. And yes, I talked about the conference that I was in at the very beginning of this video, and the links are below. Would love to see you guys there, some of you there. And yes, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.